Mike Pence busted, also found with some confidential documents. We're going to go through the story. He's going to eat his own words. He was one of these individuals who lost their minds when Trump had documents found at Mar-a-Lago. He said, how possibly could this happen? And, everybody else was screaming from the rooftops that this was such a big catastrophe of confidential information leaking out to the world. We'll see. We're going to go through the story, first reported by CNN, saying, yeah, they found these at his Indiana home. Don't think that they were supposed to be there. We'll learn more from CNN. And it's also very curious how these are all now popping up. Like, is this going to be the end of this? Does anybody have eyes on Nancy Pelosi? Has anybody searched her house or any of the other Congress people? Because it seems like there's a bit of a pattern here, at least with the vice presidents. Okay, Trump, he took the documents, but we knew he took the documents. He said, they are my documents. There's photos of him taking the documents. The National Archives had inventory of those documents, and he just actually had a legal claim for them. But all of these are other random documents that just show up. So after Biden's lawyers found it, are Mike Pence's lawyers now rummaging through it? Or all these politicians that are like, oh crap, we better check our drawers again, honey. No, I checked it. You better check it again, sweetheart. Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi were having, dinner table debates in front of their $10,000 refrigerator. So the question is, what happened here? And this is a pretty big problem, right? I mean, obviously, if there were documents found in Mike Pence's home, that's a big deal. In fact, in order to see just how big of a deal it is, let's listen to Mike Pence himself. Explain it to us.
You take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Do you see any reason for anyone to take classified documents with them
in
the White House?
At all?
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
Yeah, no reason at all. I mean, no reason to take him home. And he certainly didn't take him home, which is interesting. So you see these two people, they're like little animals in the sort of like in the wilderness documentaries, it's like a mating ritual type of a thing. They're communicating, but they're not actually communicating. They're sort of using body language and deep breaths and deep sighs and facial features and all sorts of stuff to convey this message. And this person over here is, you wouldn't possibly do that. No, gosh, no, never. I can't possibly see any reason why I could do that.
You take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
He was a little bit equivocating there, wasn't he? Yeah, he was unsure of himself on that one.
Documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Busted. Yeah, you did.
Do you see any reason for anyone
to
take classified documents with them leaving the White
House? Like Trump.
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
Okay, well, we're going to dig into that there, Mike Pence. Wonder why you took those. And I wonder if that other guy from ABC is also feeling as disgusted that Joe Biden had not one, not two, not three, but 4 different batches of documents scattered around all over his residence in Wilmington. We'll come back to that. Now, there's several other clips from Mike Pence. Why? Because Mike Pence wants to run for president. And he knows when to capitalize on a good political story. He's been doing this for a long time. He's very good at it. And I actually sort of like Mike Pence. I actually don't, I think he's a very smooth, cool operator, right? I think he's kind of a polished politician. But he's cold and calculating at the same time. So I'm interested in him as a sort of a tool of the Republican Party to see how useful he can be. But the thing that he tried to do here in order to be useful and to sort of commandeer the party and to edge Trump out was to use the document saga, the Mar-a-Lago document saga, as a battering ram to just continually beat Trump over the head with it. Unfortunately for him, there were documents at one of his residences. And this is what he said previously when he was talking to CBS about this catastrophe of classified information leaking out.
The Penn Biden papers are about vice presidential records. You are someone who has vice presidential records. Are you sure you have no classified material in your own archives?
Our staff reviewed all of the materials in our office and in our residence to ensure that there were no classified materials that left the White House or remained in our possession.
Didn't do a good job.
I remain confident that that was done in a thorough and careful way.
Uh-oh.
Clearly, in the waning days of the Trump-Pence administration, that process was not properly executed by staff around the President of the United States. And as I said, I'm not diminishing the importance of protecting classified materials, particularly top secret materials. These are the nation's secrets. They bear upon our national security. But again, this issue to me is one of equal treatment under the law.
All right, that's fair. Equal treatment under the law. So he just said a bunch of stuff right there. Trump had his house raided. Biden didn't. Biden was also allegedly obstructing the Department of Justice. Obstruction of justice. How do we know this? Because the Washington Post reported it. We've made 35 videos about this thus far, and I'm sort of sounding like a broken record here. But in November, Biden lawyers got a message from the DOJ, stop searching for documents. They didn't stop. They continued to search for documents. They found a whole second batch of them in December, after receiving the letter, presumably. So they obstructed hard. So there already isn't a double standard. Now, the question is, why isn't the FBI raiding his Rehoboth house as well and whatever other properties he owns and Hunter Biden's properties as well? Mike Pence is getting a third standard, I guess. We'll have to see what happens because he has not yet been appointed a special counsel to investigate this either. And the question will become, if every one of these politicians has a confidential documents problem, how many special counsels are there? We're going to run out of them. Let's take a look at what CNN has for us on this story. They report, first on CNN. Well done, guys. 3 journalists had to cobble this story together. Classified documents found at Pence's Indiana home. Here's a photo of Mike Pence. Here they say, is there no article here? There was an article here earlier. Apparently there's no article here. All right, let's listen to CNN.
Exclusive CNN reporting former president.
This is now number 3, former Vice President Mike Pence. Out of an abundance of caution, we are told he had a lawyer go through his house and double check boxes. They found 4 boxes in his home in Indiana. They say they had been sealed since the time he left as vice president. They go through the boxes and they found roughly 12 documents that have appear to have classified markings on them.
Wow. 12 documents with classified markings. Were those nuclear codes like Donald Trump allegedly had? Okay, these people are just hysterical about all this stuff, right? I really think more than anything, this is indicative of how incompetent our government is and how all of these people are just kind of role playing, right? They're all just like these national security role players. Oh no, give him he's entitled to see the documents and nobody's checking in and out. It's like the MVD, okay? Shout out to everybody at the MVD, right? It's government bureaucracy mess. It's just a giant mess. I didn't think it was a big deal when Trump had this going on. I think they made much ado about nothing. I think it's probably the same thing with Biden and probably the same thing with Pence. But they turned it into a big catastrophe. They're the ones who started it by raiding another head of a political party, former presidential candidate's home, knowing he was running again. So all of them have to eat it, as far as I'm concerned. Here's the actual article. A lawyer for former Vice President Mike Pence discovered about a dozen documents, marked as classified at Pence's Indiana home last week. He's turned those over to the FBI. Multiple sources told CNN. The FBI and the Justice Department's National Security Division have launched a review of the documents. Great, a third one. The classified documents were discovered in his new home in Carmel, Indiana, by a lawyer for Pence in the wake of revelations about classified documents. So Mike Pence hit the panic button and he said, you better go do another round over there in those boxes that we haven't gone through yet. So the boxes were moved. And once again, the National Archives has no idea about any of these documents, which is kind of one of the most interesting things of this whole saga to me. We read an article, I think yesterday, where they told us it was a letter from Deborah Stidel Wall. She sent a letter back to James Comer on the Oversight Committee. And she said, we actually don't know the total universe of documents that exists, which is kind of crazy. In other words, you could check out a library book and they wouldn't know that you checked it out. So if you didn't return it, they wouldn't know. There's no overdue library fees because the head librarian has no idea that you checked the books out. So Mike Pence is moving around. He just moved to a new home. He's got these boxes, those boxes you just carry around from house to house. You're like, gosh, I'll go through it one day. I've got one. It's right over there. It says, by a lawyer for Pence in the wake of revelations, the discovery comes after Pence has repeatedly said he did not have any classified documents. So, man, I want to see more. Where's Pelosi's house? Let's go see who else is senior? What does Chuck Schumer have? How long has that guy been in office? What does Mitch McConnell have? It's not clear yet what the documents are related to or their level of sensitivity or classification. Pence's team notified congressional leaders and relevant committees of the discovery on Tuesday. Whew, it's a good thing that the Republicans are in charge now, isn't it? Whew, it sure is. Pence asked his lawyer with experience handling classified material to conduct a search of his home out of an abundance of caution. They're all freaked out, man. Sources said that the attorney, Matt Morgan, began going through 4 boxes stored at Pence's house last week, finding a small number of documents with classification markings. Immediately alerted the National Archives, they called the DOJ. Now, this is a little bit different, okay? Because Biden's lawyers actually contacted the White House first. Biden's lawyers called the White House. The White House contacted the OIG at the National Archives, or something along those lines. We have it in the timeline. Pence's lawyers contacted the National Archives directly. And again, I'm presuming that Pence's lawyers called Pence first and Biden's lawyers called Biden first because they've got ethical obligations to their clients. And they gave them permission to then communicate over to the National Archives. So I would love to know what that chain of custody looks like of phone calls between the Biden lawyers when they showed up. And we still don't know who the second lawyer is. Look, Pence is being very transparent about this. Who's the lawyer who showed up? Matt Morgan. It all happened last week. Literally last week. What's today? Tuesday? Last week, they find the documents. Boom, it's revealed. So shout out to Mike Pence for being open and transparent about it. And he's doing it out of an abundance of caution. Joe Biden did all of this in the dark of night. He flew back to Wilmington. His lawyers were still searching for documents even when the DOJ told him not to. A lawyer for Pence told CNN that the FBI requested to pick up the documents. Pence agreed. Agents from the FBI's field office in Indianapolis picked up the documents from Pence's home. On Monday, Pence's legal team drove the boxes back to D.C. and handed them over to the archives to review the rest of the material for compliance with the Presidential Records Act. In a letter to the National Archives obtained by CNN, Pence's representative to the archives, Greg Jacob, wrote the following. Let's give this a read through if we can pull this up. And let's get our red pen out so we can see what we have in store. Dated January 18th, 2023, written to Miss McClure. The letter was going over to Kate Dillon McClure, Acting Director, White House Liaison at the National Archives. January 18th, from O'Melveny and Myers, LLP. This is signed by Gregory Jacob, the designated representative from the Pence Vice Presidential Records. They write, Dear librarians at the National Archives, they say the following. As Vice President Mike Pence's designated representative to the National Archives, I write to request your assistance in collecting and transferring to the custody of your library an additional set of vice presidential records. This is interesting, okay, because this could be, literally, this could be exactly how Joe Biden handled this, right? They could have done it this way. All right, well, I'm the designated representative after a president finds or vice president finds documents. What's the process? They send a letter. The letter goes out. They make the letter public. They alert the news. Joe Biden could have done exactly this. The additional records appear to be a small number of documents bearing classification markings that were inadvertently boxed and transported to the personal home of the vice president at the end of the last administration. Vice President Pence was unaware of the existence of sensitive or classified documents at his personal residence. Vice President Pence understands the high importance of protecting sensitive and classified information. They all say that. I guess that's like part of the template that they sent, you know. They go online just like you have forms and stuff, you know, whatever you do in your business. Like we have like a motion bank at our law firm, you know. They do the same thing. All right, what should we do here? Use the high importance and protecting sensitive classified information language. Love that. Yeah, that's great. And he also stands ready and willing to cooperate fully with the National Archives. They say following press reports of classified documents at the home of President Biden, out of an abundance of caution to make sure that we're not like our derelict president, Vice President Pence engaged outside counsel with experience in handling classified documents to review records stored in his personal home. Counsel identified a small number of documents that could potentially contain sensitive or classified information interspersed throughout the records. Vice President Pence's counsel, however, is unable to provide an exact description of the folders or the briefing materials that may contain the additional information because counsel did not review the contents of the documents once an indicator of potential classification was identified. Very clear. Thank you for that. That's great information. We get to see the exact process. Can you tell us what's inside? No, they didn't even look in it. And how do you trust them? Because they give us dates on Monday, January 16th. Then they tell us there's a clear chain of custody. Who gave the documents to whom, at what time, what happened next. Vice President Pence immediately secured those documents in a locked safe, pending further direction and proper handling from the National Archives. Sounds great. Like, if Joe Biden did this, we'd have a difficult time debating that, to be honest with you. We'd say, well, look, it's overdue records, right? The same standard that I would have said applied to Trump, we would have had to have said it applied to Biden, provided, of course, they raided his house as well, which they never did. So I take that back. But continuing on, the letter to the librarians say, Vice President Pence has directed his representatives to work with the National Archives to ensure their prompt and secure return. Vice President Pence appreciates the good work of the head librarians, and he knows who's in charge of this country, by the way. You see this? He's buttering them up over there. Please don't send the FBI after me, because as we all know, Deborah Stidell Wall is the one who controls who gets to say what about records in this country. If you're the president, it's nice. Like you do have a lot of power as the leader of the executive branch, but you don't get to control the categorization of documents. That's up to the head librarian. And if she disagrees with you, FBI. So they're going to work in response there. Sincerely, your friend, Gregory Jacob. Sent that letter over on behalf of Mike Pence into the National Archives. And the documents were turned over to the National Archives, which is good news. And they continue on reporting. They tell us that the classified material was stored in boxes that first went to a temporary home in Virginia before they were moved to Indiana. The boxes were not in a secure area, but they were taped up, and they were not believed to have been opened up since they were packed, according to Pence's attorney. So they weren't in a garage, is what it sounds like. Once the classified documents were discovered, the sources said that they were placed inside a safe location in the house. Dang, look at this house, man. He's got a river. Or is that a moat? I don't know. Man, it's good to be vice president. Pence's Washington, D.C. advocacy group office was also searched, Pence's lawyer said. No classified material or other records. The news about Pence come as special counsels investigate the handling of the classified documents by basically everybody else. Since the FBI searches Trump's home, Pence said, no, not to my knowledge, and so on. All right, so that is the story from Mike Pence, and we'll see if anything else turns up. Looks like he did his due diligence and went through a bunch of other entities or other locations, but we'll see. We know Joe Biden said that they also covered everything, but then batches 3 and 4 also turned up. So when it comes to Mike Pence, we turn our attention over to the Department of Justice. We already know they've appointed 2 special counsels to go investigate these document problems. But what about now? Is Mike Pence going to join the likes of Donald Trump and Joe Biden and get his own special counsel?
Our reporting on the recovery of the documents at Mr. Pence's residence seems to indicate that the Department of Justice was involved at the very start. Can you give us a sense as to whether or not this incident is being preliminarily investigated with an eye towards appointing a special counsel or assigning this to an existing special counsel? And as a follow-up question, just in the broader sense, you do weigh in on issues of policy. In the newspaper business, we say that 1 episode is a story and 3 is a trend. Do you think there needs to be a policy change, either in a regulatory sphere or in a statutory sphere, to address what seems to be this difficulty of presidents and vice presidents retaining classified material?
Great question. Great question. Seems like there's a big problem here with classified documents just falling out of all of these so-called leaders' pant drawers every time they're walking around. Is the DOJ going to change anything or update policies? I mean, you're up to 3 special counsels now. What are you going to do about this, Mayor?
Well, as you expect, I'm afraid my answer is going to have to be that I'm unable to comment on this.
Stinking White House and DOJ. No answers to anything. Who does he think he is? Karine Jean-Pierre? Come on. All right, so you can see it spreading around like wildfire. Nobody wants to talk about it at the White House. We'll continue to cover it. So Pence is busted.